of Talk Football here with Football Manager HD. I'm back. I got a good response, which I was really glad. Thanks for the good response to the first episode, which was just kind of suggestions, idea, I suppose. Before I just get into anything related to this episode, firstly, I want to just address something. I've realised actually looking back that a fair few of my latest videos have been very quiet. I'm not really sure why this is, because I've been talking at this level, which is reasonably loud, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it just hasn't been picked up quite as well. But for those episodes, do just try and turn your volume up to the max or something, or strain. Or even if you don't hear, just look and see, because you, like Football Manager, when you're playing it, is quite a visual game. So if you feel like doing that, do that. But that's just a reason. I will be trying to sort it out in the coming episodes. So today I got I think 7 questions or 7 topics, I suppose, in my first episode, which I think was an awful lot. I have to say. I was expecting maybe 2 or something, which I'd do one each, or an episode on each. But that I didn't decide to do that. So what I'm gonna do is, this is going to be a little bit of a kind of weekly, not really chat show or anything, but it's nearly like a rolling Q&A every week. It will take place most likely on Wednesdays, and if there's an overload of topics, I'll be doing a second episode, I'd say on a Saturday or Sunday over the weekend. Those are just probably the times that I'm most free in the week. So this, for episode 2 and episode 3, we'll be actually covering the first, like the 7 topics. I'm going to be doing 4 of them today. So if your question wasn't answered in this episode, it will be up in the next episode. So don't fret on that. And as per usual, in all of these videos, keep asking, and I think if you ask a decent question or just a decent topic, it will be answered. So don't be shy, don't be afraid to knock one down in the comments. Anyway, I'm gonna start off with the first one I got was from Shay McIlveen. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. But he said, what do you think of Aston Villa's situation at the moment, and who should they sign in the window? Now, of course, Aston Villa are my main team, and they're in a bit of a precarious position, I think, at the moment in the league. Of course, the only good thing is I'm recording this on the Wednesday, so yesterday they have signed, actually, Carles Gil from Valencia for, I think, 3 and a bit million on a 4.5-year deal. So, like, I think for our standards, and with the way Lerner has been kind of so protective over his money, that's a big money move, pretty much, for us. I have to say, I've not seen enough of him. I've never seen him, actually. Oh no, I might have seen him, but just didn't realise who he was. From what I could see, he's been loaned out to L.F.C the last 2 seasons. He got them promoted 2 seasons ago and helped keep them up last year. He doesn't seem to be a regular goal scorer, but he does seem to be a good provider, and that's what I think Lambert is looking for. Obviously, the goals is the main issue this year. Like, I think when you have a look at it, the defence has been as good as the defence I think is going to get. Especially considering Ron Vlaar's been out for an awful lot. Getting to the stage, like I hear from, it hasn't kind of come through permanently, but that he's on his way to Napoli at the end of the year. And I think there's probably going to be a lot of truth to that. I think he'll go. And of course, with him being injured now, he's not going to sign in January for any club, so we're not going to be able to get any money for him, which is a little disappointing. But with the way he's been injury prone lately, I'm not sure, I would have taken any sort of money, because he's barely played a game this year. Senderos has been out injured, Baker's been out injured, and I've actually been really impressed by the centre-back pairing of Kieran Clark and George Okore. I think Okore, when he actually played, like, for his 2 games or something last year before his huge ligament injury, he looked actually a stylish enough player, and I was really glad to see him finally get a go of games this year, and seems to be actually one of the few guys who's at the required standard. Kieran Clark, on the other hand, I was a big Clark pessimist, I have to say. I was thinking, oh bloody hell, if we're relying on him, it's kind of game over for us. But he's actually stepped up to the plate this time round. He's had a decent enough run of games. Like, these guys aren't going to be perfect. They are going to make some mistakes, but they've made less mistakes than I thought they would, especially at Corey. He's been very solid, and Clark has done his job as well. And they've put up together a decent back two there. Hutton, I think, has been actually a bit of a revelation this year. I think he's been one of our best players at right back. Very solid. Has shown a little bit going forward as well. And Ali Sissoko, he does the job. Like, he's been better than previous years where we've had Luna and Joe Bennett and people like that. Like, he's better than that. And he just gets the job done. Same with Guzan. Like, Guzan's been a decent enough keeper for the last few years. Probably where we're at, he's nearly the best keeper we're going to get out there. So I don't think there's much wrong with him. Well, and Benteke, of course, like, you can like Benteke or not, but actually when he's on form, he is still the best player at the club. And I get really annoyed at Villa fans who kind of don't think that. Like, I know he's lazy sometimes, and I know he doesn't put it in all the time, but on pure ability, he is by far the best player at the club. He's not given any service. You got to take that into mind. He is not getting any service. Like, he's got us out of a hole that we've got a little bit of a chance in the FA Cup. Well, we advanced to the fourth round, beating Blackpool 1-0. Fuck's sake, that's horrendous. Scored a nice goal against Man U, nice goal against Palace. Like, it's been in dribs and drabs, really, but that was because of his injuries, which concerned me a little bit. But I think, as I said, he is really the best player at the club still. The two wingers have been the real disappointment this year, because it doesn't matter who we put out. Well, he seems persistent on Agbonlahor. And Gabby's just gotten to the end of the road, it seems, this year. Like, he scored a nifty enough goal against Southampton, which I think might have been his third of the season or something, back in, when was that have been? Maybe early November or something. And he looked to have a little bit of a spring in his step in that game. But then since then, he has been absolutely brutal. And he doesn't offer anything, because his pace has kind of, like, his real pace has gone. Plus the fact that he was never insanely good on the ball, and he's just a waste of space at the moment. Same with Andy Vyman. Like, Andy Vyman reminds me of a 5-year-old or something trying to get his ball in the park back from 15-year-olds. He's running around crazily after these guys. He doesn't have a hope of getting the ball, though. He doesn't seem to have any composure, any responsibility. Like, I know he's still a young enough guy, but he's got to show. I think he's older than Benteke. He's got to show a bit more know-how, but he doesn't. And Zogbia, whenever he plays, doesn't ever touch the ball, and when he does, it's bad. And then the midfield, they just don't create. They don't create anything, I don't think. I think Carlos Sanchez has been actually quite good this year, but he's not a great player on the deck. Like, he's a good kind of defensive midfielder type. And you can afford to have one of them, but as long as the kind of other two are going to be real creators. Like Westwood, I suppose, if you look at the statistics, has he got maybe 3 or 4 assists this year? Maybe so. Like, he produces the odd good cross or good free kick, but it's quite limited. And he doesn't score. He hasn't scored a goal this year, neither has Sanchez. And then the other midfielder is most of the time cleverly. It's sometimes been Delph, but again, Delph has suffered with injuries and then suspensions, so that's really been him out for a fair amount of the games. So we've actually been really relying on Cleverly, who hasn't done anything. He really hasn't. He has been such a disappointment. Because I realistically thought when cleverly signed. Like, I knew he got a hard time from Man U fans, but like, let's face it, Man U and Aston Villa are polar opposites in the Premier League. Like, completely different standards set. So I actually thought cleverly was going to really do it at Villa. Like, Villa would be his sort of level, and that he'd be able to kind of really do something good at Villa and really enhance his career. It's such a good opportunity for him. But he has been so shit, it's not funny. The guy doesn't fulfill any role. He's not that actually much. Like, I suppose he works fairly hard, but you gotta do more than just work hard. He doesn't really win many tackles. He's got no creative spark. He's a nothing in midfield. He's a waste. He's a waster in midfield. In my eyes, like, this guy Gill is probably the right sort of guy to come in. Like, if he works out, like, I'm really hoping beyond anything that he turns out to be a Michu sort of character that's suddenly unearthed from out of nowhere. But knowing Paul Lambert's transfer now, he'll probably end up being another Alexander Tonev, who was meant to be the next great thing until he arrived. Also, the one other thing I'd like to see them use is Grealish. Like, I know he's young. He's 18, I think, maybe 19. So I know he's young, I know he's inexperienced, but I don't understand why he's not starting games. Like, it's coming to the stage now where he's regularly coming on after around an hour for 30-minute stunts, and he seems to do well in that. So I don't know why would you not give him an hour, and then if it doesn't work out, take him off at half time or after 60 minutes. But he's got ability. Again, he's another one of these guys. He's a little bit frustrating because he's a little lazy. I think he worries a little too much on his image as well, with that shit haircut though, for fuck's sake. But like that's not the point. But he's got something about him that a few of the other guys just simply don't have, and I'd really like to see us explore him a little more. In terms of who they should sign in the window, of course they've signed this guy Gill. I think that'll be us for the window. I'd be very surprised if we brought anybody else in. I was looking along those lines. Like, obviously I didn't know about Gill, so I wouldn't have suggested him. Like, I was thinking, like, really, if they could have nabbed somebody like Barini on loan. Like, I know he hasn't really done anything for Liverpool this year, but again, you gotta think of the standard we're actually at the moment. And like, Sunderland are a team level with us, really, underachieving, bigger club than what their recent results would indicate. But last year he scored 18 goals for them. He kind of kept them up. Him and Connor Wickham really kept them up single-handedly at the end of the year. Now, I don't think maybe he's not available for loan, and especially now with this guy coming in, I doubt any move will be made for somebody like him. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't make any more moves. Although I do believe we need another midfielder who actually might do something. Anyway, I've spent a fair amount of time on that. Next question is from Jordan Ball, who says, thoughts on the Ballon d'Or? I thought the Ballon d'Or was quite as expected, really. Ronaldo deserved to win it, based on statistics this year. Like, personally, I'm a bit more of a Messi fan than a Ronaldo fan, but like, this year you got to hold your hands up. Ronaldo was and had a much better year, like calendar year, than Messi did. It's so hard to compare Neuer to them, because they're not the same whatsoever. He's a goalkeeper, and like, he's probably one of the best goalkeepers the world has seen for a fair while, like, in terms of actual ability. So I find it quite hard, like, to actually, like, really rate Neuer in comparison to them, because of course Messi and Ronaldo change games all the time, by scoring goals, by making goals. As for Neuer, I suppose he's saving games, but it's quite. I don't think it was going to go to him. The other main ones, Rodriguez. I thought out of the top three, Rodriguez's goal deserved to win. Even though I'm an Irish guy, Steph Roach's goal shouldn't have won, and it came a second, which, Like, fair play. Like, it was an excellent goal, and especially for the standard football it was at. But you kind of got to take into consideration the defending was fairly lackluster. It was good technique, though, to get it over, so I'll give her that. And then she shoots it, but the keeper just kind of stares at the ball while it hits the net. Like, I really would have thought if that was in the Premier League, it would have been saved. When you look at it quite closely, I think there was just this whole novelty factor of the fact that it was at such a poor level, and that, you know, you had somebody who was obviously kind of videoing it on there on some sort of camera, but kind of blustery conditions and kind of waving about. And I thought it was quite funny, actually. Like, you come to the actual award ceremony and they still don't have. They couldn't, like, get better footage. It was still kind of the same camera thing that was shown for her a goal. But it was a good goal. I don't think it should have won. Personally, now I know this might seem a little left of field, but I thought who should have won the goal of the year was Kazami's goal. Like, I think the Fulham goal, when you look at the technique to bring the ball down, like, admittedly, it might have just been a swing and it managed to go in the back of the net, and probably it was. But he took the ball down on his chest and kind of does this kind of hook into the top corner. And I remember watching it live and thinking, bloody hell, look what he's done there. An absolute stunning piece of play, but it just didn't seem to get the mention. But I would have thought, you know, if a lot of other of those goals, like even Rodriguez's, possibly Steph Roach's, Van Persie's, like if they were scored by a Fulham player against, can't remember who was against actually, it might have been Crystal Palace or something. I think it was Palace actually. They wouldn't have got the same, like they might have finished in the top 10, but they wouldn't have finished in the top 3. And I think that's the difference. Like, it's all about, like, I thought for the World Cup ones, it was because it was the World Cup and they were good goals and they were kind of pressure goals, especially Rodriguez's one in a knockout round, and Van Persie's one was just a stunning goal, and it kind of summed up how they kind of spanked Spain. And I thought with Roach's one, it was completely the opposite. It was such a novelty factor that nobody was there. But anyway, as I said, out of the top 3, Rodriguez has deserved to win. And for me, though, Kazami, like when you look at all 10 Kazamis, I thought was the best. And lastly, on the coach of the year, went to Joachim Low. Yes, no surprises really. It was such a impressive World Cup performance from a team, like best I've seen in my lifetime in terms of domination. Like, of course, everybody remembers the Brazil game 7-1, but the one that still sticks in my memory is actually the quarter-final against France, which they only won 1-0. But I remember it was 1-0 with around 70 minutes gone, and you just expected the French team, like the French team were no mugs, and you expected them to suddenly kind of lay siege on the German goal, but nothing happened. It was so dull, but it was because they just shut it out. Like, and I think France were trying so hard to try and kind of build up some sustained pressure, but they weren't having any of it, and they just cruised through it. Then, of course, they spanked Brazil. Everybody remembers that. And then the final was actually quite well matched, but based on the tournament, they definitely deserved to win. Based on the match, it definitely could have gone Argentina's way. They did waste a few good opportunities. So I think that was, it could have been Low. I thought Simeone was a little hard done by, but I don't think it was ever going to go to Simeone because he's a bit of a nutter. So I don't think FIFA really wanted to ever give it to him, even though probably it was the best. Well, I don't know. I would have thought it was a slightly bigger feat for Atletico to have kind of broken down the dominance of Barca and Real, who are such powerhouses. And also in the league, which is a 38-game league, you know, it's no luck attached to that. It was a stunning performance. So, I know it could have gone to both of them. I think it was right that it didn't go to Ancelotti or anything, even though he did well as well. And I won't even get started on the David Luiz stuff because that'll just piss me off so much. In my eyes, Diego Godin should have been in the team instead of him. Again, though, I don't think he was ever going to be picked because he's a little bit of a loose cannon. But based on last year's performances, he was a rock. Anyway, that's that for that question. On to question 3. N. Bassi 98, I think that's how to pronounce it. He just says, sounds good, I'm a Spurs fan. So he didn't actually give me really a topic apart from Spurs. So I'll briefly touch on Spurs. I think Spurs are doing reasonably well. They're a team in transition at the moment. I think they're doing awfully well considering they really haven't played very well in many games this year. Like, whenever I see Spurs, like against a few of the poor teams, they're constantly kind of scraping results. Like, they scraped a 2-1 against Villa, but that was because Benteke got sent off. 2-1 against Hull because Ramirez got sent off. And it was 2-1 against somebody else. Might have been Swansea, I think. So kind of all quite scrappy wins. But then they went out and just bashed Chelsea, and they played so well in that game. So they were quite... They are a team in transition. I do think they're getting slightly better, though. Kane, of course, is having the year of his life. So fair play to the guy. And also the fact that, like, I know some Arsenal fans are saying, oh, well, he came through our system, so don't be shouting he's one of our own. But, like, go for it, really. Like, I don't really care. Like, you guys are the ones that have nurtured him through the latter years, and he's stepped up for Spurs, and it's good to see a homegrown player do so. I think also people like Ericsson and Chadley have been much better this year. After, especially Chadley. Chadley was very mediocre last year. Ericsson was okay last year, but he's been much better this year, much more influential. And even somebody like Lamela, like I think you've got the likes of Lamela and Soldado, who again have been a little bit better, but they still don't justify those big transfer fees spent last summer. But I do think they're a team in transition. If I'm being honest, I think they'll finish 5th. I don't think they'll get Champions League. I think they will, though, get Europa League. And I think they could still have another giant killing in them. Like, they could beat Man U, or they could beat Chelsea again. No, they've played Chelsea twice. So that's not the case. But they might beat Man City or something, I don't know. Because I do think they have it in them. If I were Spurs, though, I'd really be taking the Europa League quite seriously. Because, like, with that squad, they could definitely win the Europa League, but they don't really seem to be taking it too seriously, which is a little bit disappointing, kind of showing that they're not really interested. Which I always think is disappointing when you look at how so many other Premier League clubs would really like, I think, to play in the Europa League. But I think it's put on at such a tricky... Like, with it being on Thursday, it's so annoying. And all the Spurs games seem to be on Sunday this year. Have they even played one Saturday game? Like, it doesn't feel like it. So I think that really puts people off, that Thursday night stuff. I don't know when you put it on, though. Maybe a Wednesday night alongside the Champions League. I'm not so sure. But overall, with Spurs, I think there's a bright future there. Yeah, and I don't think they'll get Champions League this year, but possibly in a few years' time they might be again pushing for that Champions League spot. And last question of this episode. Now, there will be, I think, 3 more in Saturdays or Sunday. It's one of the two on the weekend. So if you're not the last one here, which is actually from Alex Hall, who says, who do you think could get promoted from the Sky Bet Championship this season? So if you're not one of these 4, you will be in the next episode. Going on to the Championship. I do think Derby will get automatics. I'd be extremely surprised if Derby don't get automatic promotion. They're they should have gone up last year. Like, they absolutely dominated that playoff final, and they had QPR down to 10 men, and then they screwed it up right at the end. A terrible mistake by Richie Keogh, which was quite harsh on him because he'd had such a good year and is such a consistent performer for them. But I suppose that sort of stuff does happen. I do think they'll go up. The other automatic, I think, is a tricky one to call. Because I'm not sure whether Bournemouth or Ipswich will actually take the chance, like really persist towards the end of the season. Like, Bournemouth seem to be very good. I don't think Ipswich will not get up automatically. I'd be extremely surprised if they did. So what I would go for is I'd have Derby to go up as champions. I'd have Bournemouth to go up in second, just because whenever I see them, they're really, really good. Extremely good. And a little bit of an outside pick, this one. But for the playoffs, I think possibly Norwich. They're 7th at the moment, so they're not in the playoffs right now. So, of course, they need to get into them. But when you look at some of the teams around there, I think Norwich have more experience in the top flight and more experience in those big games. You look at the other teams around there at the moment, which is Ipswich, Middlesbrough, Brentford, Watford, Wolves even. Sheffield Wednesday as an outsider. You know, I really would be surprised if Ipswich went up. Middlesbrough, I'm not sure about Middlesbrough. I haven't really seen too much of them this year. Brentford, I don't think will keep it up. Watford are always there or thereabouts, so you can't rule them out. Norwich, as I say, are my little wild card pick, I think. I suppose you can't really rule Wolves out, but I doubt they'll go up. So that's it, I think. Derby and Bournemouth, who are actually the top two at the moment, so I'm predicting that they will stay top two, but Derby will finish champions, Bournemouth second, and Norwich is a little wildcard pick in the playoffs. Anyway, that concludes this episode, episode 2 of Talk Football. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, show that with a like, possibly, if you could, and keep suggesting, because of course if this is to kind of go on as possibly a weekly or even twice a week little program, I suppose, there needs to be kind of suggestions to talk about, and I got a fair few on my first episode, which I was really happy with, and I'd love it if you guys could repeat the dose this time round. So as I said, it will most likely be Wednesdays, and if there's kind of an overload, there'll be another episode on the weekend, but it will be every Wednesday this kind of little talk show will happen. Anyway, as I said before, if you did enjoy the video, please do give it a like, and as always, subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. I'll see you guys later. Bye.